Welcome back to Apatros Review. In this episode, Shock, directed by Alfred Werker in the year 1946. It's a Vincent Price classic. Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. I'm your host, Mila Sipka, and join me as I take you on a ride through the wild worlds of science fiction, action, and horror, all from my personal DVD collection. Now, in this episode, we look at a film called Shock, which was released in 1946. It was a B programmer from that time, directed by Alfred Werker and starred Vincent Price, a few years before he became a horror icon. Now, the DVD, this film was public domain, which means that a shitload of cheap, poorly mastered copies are available from many cheap penny ante operators. There are some releases that are close to being watchable. Now, this review print comes from Siren Visual. As you can see, that's the DVD I'm reviewing. I'll review the bat in a couple episodes time, and which has a pretty modestly reasonable looking print, although it does have more than its fair share of problems. Like I said, there might be restoration prints out there, but I'll explain that later. Now this discussion has no supplement. It's a double feature of the bat, and it comes from Siren Visual Entertainment. Now the story. Whilst waiting in a borrowed hotel room for a prisoner of war husband to return to the US after being freed from his confinement in Europe, a rather nervous Janet Stewart accidentally witnesses through a window an argument between a married couple over the husband's infidelity. The husband then accidentally kills his wife with a candlestick to stop her from calling the hotel security. The shock of the murder causes Janet to go into a catatonic shock. When her husband Paul arrives, he calls in a psychologist in the building to examine Janet, only for the viewer to realize that the doctor is none other than the murdering, unfaithful Dr. Cross. Cross quickly realizes that Janet saw what he did, but he manages to convince Paul to let him care for Janet by taking her to his private sanatorium in the countryside, where he uses every trick in his arsenal to convince Janet that she was wrong about what she saw. But as the days turn into weeks and Paul's suspicions begin to grow, as well as the police starting to investigate his wife's death, Cross, along with his lover nurse Elaine Jordan, finally decide to murder Janet by putting her on the insulin shock treatment and arranging for an accidental overdose of the final treatment session. Now, this was a modestly successful mid-1940s film noir-style thriller that was meant as a B programmer for drive-ins of the era, and a minor credit in the critical invitee of horror legend Vincent Price, who was years away from becoming the horror legend he achieved with 1953's House of Wax. I'll review that in the future. Now, whilst on the surface being a rather throwaway B thriller about a medical professional who does something terrible, then realizes that he has the rare chance to dispose of his only witness by convincing her through his tricks in medical trade into believing she was mistaken, only for the witness becoming more than a mere burden to handle, Shock has gone on to making a modest impression amongst Vincent Price fans, who are willing to delve into his earlier pre-horror works as they complete their collections. The film has some nice stylistic touches for a 1940s B programmer. The use of shadows and lighting effects, the to-the-point dialogue, and the occasional visual effect, namely the short dream sequence of Annabelle Shaw does some good old jogging in the spot to simulate running, and trying to open a massive dream doorknob, which helps the film's modest reputation grow. The acting is actually top rate for this budget, with Price showing off his excellent acting chops as a man who is stuck in a trap of whether to give himself up for a crime he committed by accident, or to get away with it by cold-bloodedly killing his only witness. Vincent Shaw knew how to play this kind of role well. Lynn Barry gives good support as his secret lover and nurse, and while Annabelle Shaw's performance as the not-so-sick-as-she-seems witness/secondary victim borders on glass munching at times. Glass munching my term for extreme emotions done over the top manner. Being made in the 1940s, this means that the good are saved and the guilty punished, so making the film very predictable in its outcome, but that doesn't blunt the modest atmosphere that the film has. Now, there's no gore or nudity in this film. This is 1946 we're talking about. The earliest bit of nudity in my collection is from 1960, The Flesh and the Fiends. The Continental version, by the way. Shock gets a C+, a 5 out of 10. It's a passable entry in the 1940s B thriller genre, and a decent pick for Vincent Price completists. And it is public domain, so you're going to find this anywhere. Like I said, Shock was placed in the public domain status decades ago, which means that a whole shitload of prints on VHS and DVD have been flowing around for years. As for my review print, this is on a double feature DVD from Siren Visual Entertainment, a minor label that was one of Region 4's first budget labels. Siren started out issuing public domain source double and triple feature releases at first, and then went on to putting out local uncut prints of Italian horror films like City of the Living Dead, Cannibal Ferox, and The Beyond. before pointing the US DVD set of Cannibal Holocaust. Those later releases making local horror fans like me very, very happy. I'll review those films those DVDs in the future, by the way. In this case, the DVD has both Shock and The Bat on it, as a double feature for Vincent Price. And in the case of Shock, the print used here has a good deal of problems with it, although not as terrible as some of the other public domain prints I've seen for this film. In fact, I remember I had once a public domain copy of the Shock, which like basically in between film reels they leave a bit of a space, like dead space. like the reel ended and they took a while putting the next one on. This one doesn't have that problem. Now the print was taken off an old film reel which shows the scratches, marks, and general lack of clarity. If you're a high definition junkie, this will really piss you off. For the more patient of us, it will be a little annoying, but at least you can make out what's going on the screen. And this is one of the better prints I've seen of this film flying around. Not perfect, but in fact even the DVD tells you at the beginning that the conditions will not be that perfect. But this is one of the better ones, if you want. And plus, this actually has the bat on it, which also has a bit of problems with it too, but I'll explain that when I do the bat in a couple episodes' time. Now, for the soundtrack, there's only an English dual mono soundtrack with a minimal 192 kilobyte range. No subtitles and no supplement. But then again, most of these Siren Visual films didn't really have any supplement on them. The package is presented pretty decently, so unless you've got your hands on a restored print, I'm not sure one currently exists. Although you might want to give the Film Detective a call, they might have one. And this will be a good disc to get, if only for the fact that it looks more professional than the majority of other public domain labels out there. And for Italian horror fans, a little payback for being the first label to release those films in Region 4 uncut. So I'll show you again. That's what it looks like. It's not that common, but you can pretty much find it if you look hard enough, probably on eBay. And that's actually the second disc from Siren. I total 7 of these classic range. Others being City of the Living Dead, Cannibal Ferox, Beyond, and the other disc I reviewed before with the vampire band card Bewitched, and a Roger Corman triple pack. Okay, that's it for the Shock. Pretty much gets a C+. Again, the DVD. It's rated PG. And yeah, hope you guys are staying safe. The vaccine is coming on its way, and March of next year we'll all be vaccinated, hopefully. And pretty much the pandemic will be over, which will be good. And March is my birthday. I'm going to try a little something for March next year. We'll see. Hope you guys are staying safe. Now, by the way, I don't do requests, but if you want to know of a particular film in my collection, just hit me up in the comments section below. I don't have too many reviews left for this year, and I'm doing a special episode at the end of the year. Basically, look back at the year 2020. I'll probably do those maybe once every year. Hope you guys are staying safe, and that's it for this review.